Good morning, Grace Chapel. It's Pastor Mark. Thank you for worshiping with us this morning. Hey, I've got good news. It looks like we're going to be able to get back to our normal schedule next Sunday. And so we're looking forward to that. This virtual experience of having this opportunity to get into your homes with you has really been a blessing. Slight challenge at the same time, but it really has been a great blessing, and we look forward to doing that in the future. It would be a great time, especially if you're watching this on YouTube right now, to subscribe to our channel, Grace Chapel Magnolia's channel on YouTube, so that we can get 100 subscribers, so that we can get the benefits of the live streaming that we're hoping to go to in the near future, so that we can continue to have this type of content for you at home. I also want to encourage you to go to the website, check out the different activities that we as a church are involved in. We have boys programs, girls programs, youth programs, men, women, all different types of activities that are going on. If you're local in this area, we would love to have you come and visit our church. We'd love to get to meet you and get hopefully to the chance to be able to have you in our community as we worship together. I also want to just make mention that thank you so much for your continued financial support as you continue to give of your tithes and your offerings. Those things are a blessing to us. It enables us to continue the ministry. And we know that as we are faithful in doing that, God is continually faithful to meet the need that we have. You are in our prayers. We continue to lift you up in whatever situation you may be in. We ask that you'd continue to pray for us as a ministry. God bless you. I'm looking forward to sharing with you a word that the Lord has placed on my heart, and I'll be coming back in just a second. Good morning, Grace Chapel. It is so good to be with you. I'm looking forward to when these seats are filled, and we will be getting to that very soon and just a week away. So that's going to be a great reunion for us. But for those that have been with us over these last several weeks, through the internet, YouTube, Facebook, those types of things, it has been a pleasure to have you. I appreciate your comments and encouragement. We ask that you continue to pray with us as a church, and we will continue to pray for you as our family here at Grace grows. This morning, what I'd like to talk to you about is a sermon that I've entitled, Fanning the Flames of Love. Fanning the Flames of Love. And I'd like to begin by doing a marriage welfare check. It's just simply the reality that probably you and your spouse have never spent so much time together as you have in the last few weeks. And my question to you this morning is, how's it going? How's it going? You may be laughing at home thinking about it. Well, I hope that you've been enjoying the time together, but it is quite possible that you've begun to be faced with some challenges in your relationship, in your home life together. His peculiarities, his bad habits, shall we say, they may be testing your every nerve. Her eccentricities, her 50,000 words that normally get used up majority at work with her work, with people she works with or friends, now you're getting all 50,000 of them. And that may have become sort of caused some difficulties in your relationship. It may be more than you have expected. Both of you at this point may be wishing that you could have some time apart. Well, it's just simply a reality. When we have been together in the stay-at-home and living together, often we don't work together, but as you're living together, then there is this kind of an intensity of relationship that you may have experienced. And so what I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about that and give you some helps today. But we're going to begin by talking about a powerful love that is talked about in the scripture. In fact, the Bible presents for us a picture of the marriage relationship between the husband and wife as being a very, very powerful one. I want to take you to the Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verses 6 through 7, and he says this, he writes this, he says, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death, jealousy is fierce as the grave, its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised." It's amazing the picture that Solomon creates here about love. And you may be thinking to yourself, man, you know what Solomon is talking about here, this picture of love, using these vivid pictures of a seal on the heart, of the idea of the strength of love, as strong as death, as permanent as death, as fierce as the grave, flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench that love. The floods can't drown it. I mean, these are some really powerful things that he's talking about love, and you're sitting there thinking, man, I've just a few hours ago thought about, who knows what you're thinking about, but things can get tough when you're together for week after week after week. So he uses these vivid pictures speaking about love, and that idea of the seal, that's something that's kind of unique to us, but that idea of the seal is this idea that in that time, the Old Testament time, what a owner of property would do is they would put a seal on something to say, this is something that is valuable to me, I want to maintain it. And so the writer here is saying, put that stamp on me, I want to be valuable to you. And that's the reality in our marriages, is that husband to wife, wife to husband, that we want it to be said of us and realized by each partner that we want to be valued and appreciated. Such a powerful, powerful idea. In sort of our welfare check today, the question then is, can you describe your marriage in those terms? Well, I hope you can. But if you can't, like many of us, what we want to do is talk about some concepts and explore some concepts that will help us fan the flames of love this morning. So let's talk about those things. Let's talk about some helps. Now, I've been reading through the book of Proverbs in my devotions. Just finished them the other day, and so many thoughts covering such a broad wealth of different types of topics. But I want to use some of that wisdom that King Solomon wrote down in that book, and I want to apply it to our marriages for us this morning. And I hope that we walk away from this morning with something that will really encourage us and strengthen our marriage, so that our marriage becomes reflective of what those scriptures were that we just looked at in the Song of Solomon. The first thing that I think is important for us to understand is that we need to build a smart home. We need to build a smart home. Now, I love gadgets. Gadgets just intrigue me. These devices, and I'm going to say their name, and they're probably going to sound off in your houses, but Alexa and portals and rings and Wi-Fi and Siri and all these different types of things. These things are cool to me. I just enjoy thinking about them. I'm not saying I can understand them. I'm not saying I can even work them. I'm just saying I think they're pretty cool and they fascinate me. I have to call up my kids. Say, hey, Jesse, Jessica, Brittany or Austin, hey, I need some help. Pretty soon it's going to be my grandkids that are going to have to help me figure these things out. But I like the concept of it. I like to think about how my home could be a smart home. How I could have a ring, doorbell where I could see who's coming up to the house, so I can, monitor my property, to be able to speak and the lights come on, or speak and get an answer to a question I might have, or change the channel, or all those things. And by the way, I can't do most of those things. But I do like to think about it. I'd love to be able to do it. These things just interest me. So I'm a long way off. I'm still trying to remember when I look at a device, what is the name that I need to say for this thing to respond to me? So I'm in sort of the training wheels are still on. But men and women, we need to think about in our marriages, in our homes, we need to think about creating smart homes according to Solomon. Proverbs 24, verses 3 and 4 say this. They say, by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge, its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. So he says, by wisdom, a house is built, or thoughtfulness, a house is built. The writers, Cindy and Steve Wright, they ask these questions. What kind of houses are you building? Now I'm talking about our relationships, our home situations that we're in. What kind of home are we building? Are we building up, or are we tearing down one another in our homes? What is the atmosphere of your home? Have you thought about it? Have you thought about the way that you could affect that atmosphere there so that it is a pleasing and enjoyable atmosphere that everyone, your wife, your husband, or your children, that you can all enjoy? See, it's important for us to take a look inside. We need to sort of look at these things so that we can contribute to them so that they can be smart homes. A couple of suggestions, and I think these are just realities that we need to understand, is guys, and I'm speaking to the husbands here primarily, but you have the responsibility of setting the tone for your home. Setting the tone for your home. Now, I've said the wife is the heart of the home, and that's absolutely true. But guys, you have to set the tone. There's this intentionality that rests on you as the head of the house to be able to say, hey, this is the type of home that we're going to have. And when that tone gets out of sync, when it is off key, it needs to be adjusted, then guys, you're responsible to do that. You need to walk in wisdom. You need to apply spiritual principles and just common sense principles to be able to do that. You can set that by the attitude that you bring into the home, by the tone of the voice that you speak and by the things that you're saying to your wife and to your kids. You need to be thoughtful about that. I remember during the summer months when I was teaching, our kids were young at that time, and so I would have this summer off. You know, you get out with the kids, and as a teacher, you get out with the kids, and so you've got the couple months there where it's like, hey, this is going to be great. I'm going to be off. In those days, Cindy was working. She was working as a certified nurse's aide, and so she would get up early in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. She'd go into work. She'd have her day full, but there I was with the kids thinking, hey, this is like a vacation. Well, it wasn't any vacation. I'm fixing breakfast for the kids. I'm getting them motivated, getting them dressed, getting their little day going for them. I'm making sure the house is clean, the dishes are clean, even the laundry, I'm taking care of those things. I'm making sure that the kids are fed. I'm making sure that their day is structured. I'm making sure that I'm the referee in their fights that are going on. Yeah, my kids fought. And I'll tell you what, by the end of the day, when Cindy came home, I was like, I'm done. See, it was easier for me to go paint a house, or me to go do my reserve duty in the Army, whatever, but it was like, it was work to take care of the kids. And guys, I want you to know that being at home, taking care of the house and taking care of the kids is not a day off. You're welcome. Another thing that we need to be thoughtful about is we need to think about finance. We need to think about finance. A lot of times when all the time that I'm speaking with a couple that is considering marriage, I talk to them about finance. You know, we all come from two different worlds on how we handle finance. And so what I encourage them to do is to come to an agreement with how they're going to handle the finances, because it's going to be an issue. If you're not smart about building the home with how you're going to handle your finances, it's going to be something that's going to continually pull at you over and over again. A couple suggestions that I have is, one is Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey, and another one is a new book that has come out from Robert Morris, and his book is Beyond Blessed. Okay, Beyond Blessed. These are two great practical guides to be able to help you to deal with finance. Another area, you may think me strange for saying this, but that is be attractive. Be thoughtful about being attractive. From time to time, my wife tells me, she says, that shirt, those shorts need to hit the dumpster, right? They need to go. And I may have this attraction to them. I may have this sentimentality about those things. But when she says it needs to go, it's because she's not getting a favorable impression as she's looking at me in those clothes. And then there are times when I've told my wife, I've been bold enough to say, Cindy, that needs to go. And she does. Now, the stay-at-home order here in Montgomery County went into effect on March 12th. If you're still in your pajamas and you're still in your sweatpants, it's time to change. If you haven't worn makeup and you haven't shaved, your marriage may be reflecting it. See, these are very practical things. May seem even silly, but use wisdom in building your house. A second practical piece of advice that I want to give to you is this, and that is to tame the tongue. To tame the tongue. Now, normally, or most frequently, when we talk about taming the tongue, we'll go to the book of James in the New Testament. But I said we were going to work from Proverbs, so I'm going to give you some scriptures from Proverbs that offer some very practical advice. Here's one out of the 17th chapter, verse 14. It says, starting a quarrel is like breaching a dam. In other words, breaking out a dam. So drop the matter before a dispute breaks out. I like what the Life Application Bible has to say about that verse. It says, talking about every little irritation or piece of gossip, all it does is keep the fire going. If you just close the mouth, then so many times it doesn't add the fuel that fire would require to keep going. Is it worth it? Is it even necessary? Is it even just something that is your problem and not the other person's problem? Be wise about what you're going to discuss if you have a irritation that is taking place between the two of you. Proverbs 17:19, same chapter, just a couple verses down, says this. It says, whoever loves a quarrel loves sin. Listen to that. Whoever loves a quarrel loves sin. It's pretty powerful. Whoever builds a high gate invites destruction. I learned a new term earlier this week, and it's what counselors call the right fighting. Okay, right fighting. It's fighting just to prove that you're right. You may be in this conversation, you may be in this bickering between you and your spouse, and you're realizing it's like, man, I don't even know why I'm arguing anymore, but I'm just fighting to be right. Just trying to survive this. And it's really not about the issue. In fact, it's not at all about the issue anymore. It's about your own pride. And that pride needs to lay down. It's funny because some people are uniquely equipped to go into a verbal battle with somebody else. It may be that, you have this education, like a lawyer. A lawyer has this ability to they're taught this. They're able to take an issue and they can sort of contort it around so that the logic begins to transform. And so there's that skill. Others have a skill, maybe it's in a corporate setting. You're used to being in this boardroom. You're used to kind of debating ideas back and forth in sort of a forceful way, or in a way that's not, it's not the way that it would take place in your home. Or maybe it's a teacher. You understand this behavioral, you understand these processes and these types of things. And so you're using this information against your spouse when they don't have that type of information to be able to do that battle. Don't use, I say it again, do not use your big words to beat up on your spouse just because you don't want to be wrong. See, it doesn't matter how much education, it doesn't matter what size the words that you're using, right is right and wrong is wrong. Very, very simple. Because we need to be listening to what our husbands, to what our wives are saying. And we need to look at it for the truth of what is being said, not necessarily the big words that are being said. Proverbs 16:25 says, there is a way that appears to be right. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. Before I move on to another area, there's one more gem from the book of Proverbs that I want to share with you. And it is Proverbs 16, verses 23 through 24. He writes this. He says, the hearts of the wise shall make their mouths prudent, and their lips promote instruction. Gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Now, a lot of times in Proverbs, what we hear is, do not do this. It's kind of a warning. Now, here's something that's proactive. It says, this is what you ought to do. The hearts of the wise make their mouths prudent, and their lips promote instruction. Gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. That is the spirit that we ought to be speaking and encouraging one another in. The third area of wisdom is this. It is unite. Unite. Now, husbands, I know what you're thinking. And yes, you should be doing that too. But I'm speaking specifically about agreements and issues that you have shared responsibilities. I'm going to share a couple verses. They're just outside the book of Proverbs, but it really hits on the heart of what I want to share. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, just 4 chapters after Proverbs ends. Verse 12 says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And the point being that one strand is not the equivalent strength of the 3 strands together. Of course, in a marriage we're talking about 2, but the point is the same. That the 2 of you, when you are united together, there is a strength that can't be overcome. In the New Testament, we'll go to the book of Ephesians. Ephesians 4, verses 2 through 3 says, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. That last phrase, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. See, it's important for us to be united, maintaining that unity of spirit so that you have a home that is a peaceful home, a good home, a healthy home to be in. You see, couples don't typically struggle with deep, psychological or philosophical issues. It's simpler than that. One partner needs help. They need help in the area of parenting. They need help in the area, or they need unity in the area of finances. They need unity in the area of what type of activities are we as a family doing? How are we keeping these kids engaged? How are we keeping them entertained? How are we keeping them learning? We need to be united in the idea of time management. How are we doing these things? And the list goes on and on of all kinds of different types of things. Guys, I want to challenge you, because one of the things that you need to know, or you need to be doing in your home, is you need to be understanding the why. The why of what you do in your home, why you do it that way. Whatever your specific rules in your house are. Why do you, for example, sit and have supper together? Why are you careful about the way that social media is used? Why are you careful to go and look on the phone and see what your kids are looking at? All these different types of whys. Why do you go to church? And yet you're able to speak that and encourage people and do it in an instructive and a helpful way so that your household understands the why of what is taking place. Why do you have family devotions? And you need to speak with your wife, and you need to be in agreement about those things. Another thing that we need to understand is that unity is not sameness. Cindy and I are not the same people. Cindy is different than I am, and I am different than Cindy is. It doesn't make one better, one worse. It just simply is the fact that we are not the same. We can be united, but it doesn't mean that we are the same. In fact, men and women have completely different needs. A book that I would recommend for married couples to read is a book called His Needs, Her Needs. And in this book, it goes through these 5 different needs for both men and women. The men's 5 most basic needs generally are these in order of importance. One is sexual fulfillment. Secondly is recreational companionship. The third is an attractive spouse. The fourth is domestic support. And the 5th one is admiration from their spouse. So those are the 5 basic needs that a husband has generally. For women, the 5 most basic needs from her husband are affection, conversation, openness and honesty, financial security, and family commitment. Give those to you again. Affection, conversation, openness and honesty, financial security, and family commitment. If you don't understand that we are made uniquely from one another, that we have different needs, you may be trying to satisfy something that will meet your need, but it's not meeting her need. And the same thing vice versa. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be thinking about that in our lives. And we need to be coming into unity with those things. You see, if you expect your husband or wife to be just like you and wearing matching shirts for the rest of your lives, you got another thing coming. You're missing out on the good things that come out of the uniqueness that each of you have and the gifts that each of you have, that you bring into the marriage and that build that home. So going back to this idea of our marriage welfare check, in conclusion, what are the results of our check this morning? Are there some areas in your life, I know that there are some in mine, but are there some areas in your life that need to be improved? I hope that we never experience another stay-at-home order like this, because it comes with some serious baggage that is just not good. But we do need to be putting our own homes in order. Remember that our goal as we began this study, as we began this talk this morning, is that our marriages ought to be filled with excitement. They ought to be filled with the fulfillment that was expressed in Song of Solomon, and I want to read it again. Song of Solomon 8, verses 6 and 7 again. He said, "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm. For love is strong as death, jealousy is fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly destroyed or despised." He would be utterly despised. I know I read those words and I think to myself, that's the type of relationship that I want to continue to foster between my wife and I. That's the kind of relationship that your children want to see and that they find comfort in. It's the kind of marriage that, honestly, this is what we expect. The world presents all these other types of things that would be wonderful, but this is the biblical picture of what marriage is and the joy that ought to be in the marriage relationship. Sure, it might look different from age 20 to age 60, but there's still that fire, there's still that passion, there's still that strength that is there. So I want to encourage all of us to take some time and to talk to one another. I want you to ask the Lord to give you the three things that we've been talking about. First of all, the wisdom to build a smart home. The wisdom to build a smart home. It's a great way to structure the conversation with your husband or with your wife. Let's talk about it. Let's come to some understanding. Secondly, is that we need to build in, or we need to exercise self-control to tame the tongue. Self-control to tame the tongue. And by the way, sometimes we don't lash with the tongue, but we can do it with our passive actions and attitudes. We need to tame that. And the third thing, the last thing that we talked about, certainly there are more, but the third thing is this, is that there needs to be unity. There needs to be unity in your relationship. And that may mean that you need to invest in some time together to begin to study some things. Make a plug for something that's available to our church, and that is Right Now Media. And in that Right Now Media, there are lots of videos that help you in marriage, that help you with parenting, that help you with finances, on and on. Lots of great things that are available for you to be able to do that. There are a lot of things that are unique to us today in 2020 that other generations didn't have to deal with, and it would benefit us to look at that and figure out, how do we get united in these things so that we can go forward, that we can have that seal on our arms, so that we can be blessed in the name of Jesus Christ. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. God bless you. Love you. Take care.